Okay, let's talk dysfunctional family dynamics, shall we? Oh my god. Okay, dysfunctional families are the norm on this planet. I don't care whether you are a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever you are, family systems therapy. What we have been dealing with over the past X amount of years is a basic assumption that dysfunctional relationships are the exception. In fact, they're not the exception, they're the norm. I literally am not kidding you how much the norm they are. For human beings at this time on the planet Earth and family dynamics, you're looking at a scale where pretty much everyone falls somewhere on this side of the scale. And it's a very rare family, actually, that does not fall into the dysfunctional family dynamic characteristics. In a dysfunctional family, there are very specific roles that people play because it's human psychology. So let me introduce you to these roles, shall I? The primary role in a dysfunctional family is what we've been calling the narcissist. Actually, all beings in a dysfunctional family unit are narcissistic. By narcissistic, what we mean is operate for themselves in their own best interest with their own reality. So it's basically like a bubble of I, me, and mine. In a dysfunctional family, the way that the family operates makes it impossible for people to break out of that, actually. Because even the people who you would think are not part of that, the people most people think are narcissistic, which are codependent, are super freaking narcissistic because they figure out how to meet everybody's needs, but purely to meet their own needs. So they're still thinking completely manipulatively about themselves. So in a dysfunctional family dynamic, which is 99% of families on the planet Earth today, you're looking at a dynamic where every single person is narcissistic in nature. But the person that we identify as narcissistic literally acts as if they can't consider anybody else's best interests. Now, this is typically, the father. Not always. I mean, there's a lot of where this is flipped completely, there's super unhealthy females who the whole family dynamic operates around their dysfunction. But it's typically men still. So I'm going to give you that example, knowing that this can flip, okay? I'm going to give you the example of the classic dysfunctional family. You've got a father, well, let's say he's alcoholic, or maybe he's just, because he's been raised in a society that gives him complete control and power over everything, he's been raised in that way, where he's kind of an asshole, right? So this guy is my rules, my law, I'm thinking about me, I'm not really thinking about your best interest, and if I'm ever thinking about your best interest, it's literally only because of me. This is not somebody that's able to take somebody's best interest as part of themselves. Now, the way that they live their life is dysfunctional. And based on their level of dysfunction, they essentially develop a need for somebody else to make up for that dysfunction. And so they end up with what we call the codependent. The codependent is actually the bigger problem, if you want to know the honest truth. Because everybody looks at the narcissist in the family, the one who's really in charge and is really the asshole of the family, and says, that's the asshole. What they're not seeing is the very covert narcissism that's occurring within the codependent. And the codependent, first and foremost, is an enabler. They make the person who's the narcissist worse. That's why in a dysfunctional family, the definition of dysfunction in a relationship in general is that it's a relationship that causes destruction to any person involved in that relationship. So obviously, to be in a relationship with somebody that enables my dysfunction, that is going to be detrimental to me, not beneficial. So we've got these detrimental type relationships occurring within this dynamic. The codependent, which is the enabler, is constantly making excuses for this person. So the narcissist in the family might say, might be drunk. Let's do a narcissist who's drunk. They're passed out on the floor. It's obvious they're passed out. It's obvious they've drunk themselves into a coma. The codependent's going to be the one that comes up and says, he just had a hard day at work. Like, it's constantly covering over. Not only that, the way they get their self-esteem, super dysfunctional. They get their self-esteem by being the one that's so obviously dedicated to somebody who's so cruel to me back. So it's like the ultimate form of victim control drama. So this is the person who goes and, like, they never actually take actions to stop the behavior, really. And in fact, some codependents have gone far enough that when their spouse starts to overcome alcoholism, they actually put alcohol in the house deliberately. That's how bad they need the crash of the other person to happen, so they can guarantee that they will never be left. In a codependent, super low self-esteem, because they grew up in the same type of family dynamic, with the super low self-esteem, they're the type of person who does not believe that it's possible for anybody to truly love them for them. So they have to find a loophole to cause somebody to need them. And not need in a healthy way, need in a really unhealthy way. So I need somebody who's so dysfunctional on their own that I can make myself indispensable in a way that this person can never leave me. And now I don't want them to get healthy, because if they start to get healthy, they will leave me. So this person comes in as the savior and then becomes the person poisoning the water so they can heal you. Real scary psychology there. They're also only ever thinking about themselves. So the codependent's the one who's basically going behind, the narcissist back behind the family back, and is like, woe is me, look at my life. I'm such a good person based on the fact that I'm just so dedicated to, what's going on here, even though I know everyone tells me I shouldn't be. That's the codependent psychology. This person's going to destroy the children. Both parents are going to destroy the children. Because the kids are put in a situation now in this dysfunctional relationship, relative to this dysfunctional relationship, which is now a family, they're put in a position where they can't actually have a genuine relationship with either parent, because both are completely self-centered. They're both completely focused on their needs in different ways. Now, the child is expected to adapt. And what they're having to adapt to is a very low self-esteem, an ego that is underdeveloped and unhealthy. And so there's only a few ways to cope with that. And usually, it's not something which the child decides in terms of how they're going to cope with it. It's something that's decided by the parents. So let's say that you have a child who is hypersensitive already. Maybe they come in with a nervous system that's really super sensitive. This is a child who's not going to be able to conform to the needs of the parent, which is what's expected here. The child is not allowed to have their own identity. So when this child, does something different than what the parents want, it's going to be, no holds barred, like this is not acceptable in this family type of thing. Now the children in that moment where they're like, shit, I don't get to have myself, they get to choose either to conform or to be kicked out of the damn family, energetically and emotionally. And so if a child has a hypersensitive nervous system, for example, they're not going to be able to. When they're crying and mom says, stop crying, or dad says, stop crying or I'll beat the shit out of you, this kid's not going to be able to do it. And so what's going to happen is, this is where the family dynamic begins, and it's where your question comes in here. What will happen is that child gets positioned by the family itself into what we call the scapegoat role. Now that can be the problem. Now, because the whole dynamic in an unhealthy family system is set up on the premise of a very low self-esteem, a way to feel even better about all of ourselves in the family is to make that one the family problem. So in fact, the scapegoat in the family becomes the place that all of these family shadows are displaced. I don't have to look at the fact that I'm super controlling. I can say that that little brat is controlling, right? And it gets deflected. Now, here's the other child. The other child who can conform, becomes the opposite of what that one is. So one gets the deep displaced shadow, and one gets to be heralded as the light bearer of the whole family. So this one we're going to put all of our shame on, and this one's going to constantly fuel our self-concept. That's the adaptive strategy of the two children involved. Now that one's called the golden child. That child learned how to adapt in that they learned how to take their identity and throw it out the window. By the way, they become the future codependent. They become the one that's capable of throwing their identity out the window and literally being exactly what both the narcissist and the codependent, usually they favor one or the other based on where their survival really is dependent upon, to mirror, to become an identical match to completely conform to, and by doing so, the message the dysfunctional parent receives is, I am amazing, and this child is proving to me how amazing I am. Now this is where it gets really messed up. When the parent squares off against the scapegoat child as the one that they deflect all their shit onto, they expect the other child to validate them in doing so. So in a dysfunctional family dynamic, what the narcissist and yes, even the codependent do is they put the other child in a position where, in order to have allegiance with them, they have to turn on the scapegoat too. So they basically turn the children against each other. And a lot of the horrible sibling rivalry cases that you're seeing in the world are actually the result of this. The parents have set up a dynamic, whether you're able to recognize it or not, where you turn against your sister if you want to be aligned with me. And this dynamic, even sometimes the parents can die, right? And the dynamic itself, the system of the family itself is so pervasive, and we are so used to it, and we want to recreate it because that's our familiarity. It's so incredibly persistent that even when parents die and there's actually an opportunity for the system of the family to shift, another member of the family will simply step into the same roles. So the way to understand a dysfunctional family is it's a self-perpetuating system because it's always seeking to reproduce itself. The minute that there's a vacation, and in terms of one person playing a role, there is somebody else trying to fill that role. That's why it's like I laugh my ass off when scapegoats actually get free of a dysfunctional relationship, because the likelihood is another kid's just going to become the new scapegoat. I know that some of you that are in dysfunctional relationships have experienced that. Suddenly you find yourself in the position of, wait a minute, I was like the crowning jewel of the family, and now I'm the scapegoat. Especially when you go into the path of spirituality, right? But so that's kind of what's happening. So the reason why your sister finds it easier to make you the problem actually has to do with your childhood. Way back. This was a dynamic that was set up in her mind, I can guarantee you, way freaking before. Way before, it was you two in adulthood. And that's what's the most important thing to recognize. Now, I will tell you that people in general are incredibly resistant to seeing their own family as dysfunctional. Usually the people who can see their family as dysfunctional have really dysfunctional families where it's actually impossible to look at it and go, oh my God, that's crappy, For the majority of dysfunctional families on the planet Earth, you don't have something that overt, even though these dynamics occur. And growing up in the family, what does the dysfunctional family say? We're the most functional family. They're constantly reaffirming this, and so it's almost like you're breaking free of a gaslight. It's very hard for us to recognize the fact that we came from a dysfunctional family. But it's important to do, otherwise you're never going to see what's actually going on between your sister and you. But that's what's going on. If your sister is able to make you the problem, she never has to face her own shadow, and she can stay allied to the parents, even if it's the family system in her own mind. When is our first break, by the way?
I mean, whenever you want. It's 20 minutes.
20 minutes from now?
20 minutes.
Okay. Is this making sense so far?
Yeah, that's great. How to ask the universe to get what you want regardless of what you are matched to.
I may find some loophole for you. I may or may not have found a loophole to the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. That question is sort of like, how do I get what I want without doing the work? I'm going to tell you something. Those of us who have been playing with this time-space reality for long enough are sort of sick of it. There's a collective movement within consciousness itself, not just human consciousness, but consciousness itself. It's kind of done with the law of attraction. We're done with mirrors. So there's actually a new time-space reality that is in the baby processes of being designed, just like the beginning of this time-space reality. By the way, in this universe, there are multiple universes. This universe you're living in operates according to the law of attraction. There is another universe that is currently being designed at this moment that is based on desire, meaning that if you desire, that's what reflects. It's still a reflective type of time-space reality, but it will only reflect desire and nothing else. So that's in the process, and I'm pretty much planning on going there myself after this because I'm sort of done with this. But yeah, I'm going to have to let me debate whether or not I want to share what I discovered in terms of the loophole for the law of attraction, because it has massive implications. Having any aspect of yourself that could potentially be out of the law of attraction has massive implications for the planet itself. And so allow me to debate whether or not I want to teach that in general, but look at the aspect of yourself that's being a little bit lazy about shadow work right now and not wanting to actually find or change the aspects of yourself that are a match to certain things so that the reflection in the mirror changes. Because the question you're asking is sort of like, how do I stand in front of a mirror and make the reflection be different than the reality? That's basically the question you're asking. And the universe itself would be like, why the hell are you trying to do that?
Okay, a couple people asking about questions of incompatibility.
Okay.
Do you know if the incompatibility is really incompatibility or just due to shadows? And then there's a little story from this person, if you want.
Okay, no, okay, well, look, I can do the stories in a minute. Here's the thing, you guys. I would suggest that you work on your shadows no matter what. Because working on your shadows reveals what's actual truth for you. However, when it comes to genuine incompatibility, it almost doesn't matter whether it comes from shadow or not. I'll give you an example. One of the worst incompatibilities you can have with somebody is relative to attachment needs. So one person has an extreme need for lots of vicinity to their partner. I need you in my life all the time, like I want to have a joint life. Another person needs a high degree of autonomy. Now this person's like, I want to have a separate life. I want to go do my own thing. I want to maybe see you and I want to see you. This is a huge incompatibility, both of which come from shadow. Now what shadow is what I don't know that I don't know, right? It's the unconscious. Now when we're talking about shadows, we're often talking about negative aspects. Those aren't the same thing, so we've got to get clear about what we're talking about. But let's say that back in our childhood, right, we experienced some negative thing, and based on that negative thing, we have a desire. It's not always the case that when you deal with that negative thing, you have a different desire. Sometimes that was actually right for you. So let's say that one person came in and was totally enmeshed with their parent. So their parent controlled everything about them, chose their clothes, they had to be a surrogate parent, all the most unhealthy type of enmeshment that you can get. That person is obviously, by virtue of going through that contrast, going to desire more autonomy in life. So it's tempting for us, if we're in a relationship with that person, to be like, well, look at all the shadow that desire came from. If we purify the shadow, they'll want to be with me. Hell to the no. What often happens when they do shadow work is that they realize that autonomy is actually the experience that they were missing and that they need desperately. And that is a huge incompatibility. It doesn't matter whether it comes from shadow or not. It doesn't matter whether it comes from contrast or not. Now, a lot of times we get into issues like this in relationships because we're convinced that if somebody would just heal themselves, they would heal into being whatever it is that we want. A, it's terrible because you're focusing at the person like they have to change something in order to be perfect to be with you. And B, it's often not the case. Often what we actually needed is what we're living into. So for example, someone was completely insignificant in childhood, maybe they do need to be famous. Maybe they do. And maybe healing isn't going to take them in the direction we think it's going to take them in. So I want you to be open to the concept that you got to separate out whether it comes from shadow or not, and just really see this person is making this choice. And obviously if you do shadow work, it will be revealed. In other words, you do enough shadow work on somebody who's got that enmeshment issue, and they might wake up one day and say, I actually want a relationship, or they might go completely the opposite way, where they're like, actually, I'm consciously choosing to be the guy that climbs Everest and never commits to a family. So it's less about whether it comes from shadow or not, and more about what a person is choosing consciously, because they want to. You can work with anything, by the way. If somebody chooses it, you can work with it. That should be a real big indicator of whether or not you should stay with someone or not, if there's any amount of incompatibilities. If the person is incompatible with you, but they genuinely want the thing that would make them compatible to you, then you can work with that. What you can't work with is someone lying about it, meaning telling you they want it, but doing everything in the opposite direction, and it's obvious that it's like not what they really want. And what you can't work with is somebody who doesn't want to change it at all. So be thinking about that. What is the story?
I have a hard time with my relationship because no matter how many times I've tried to solve our issues, they keep repeating. He just gets angry or makes everything my fault. I am so exhausted to keep trying to fix myself. I am starting to think that maybe we just can't work because we have different goals in life and either one or another will get hurt. I'm very confused with this because before meeting him, I had a desire to meet someone that will be with me for my whole lifetime, and I got a prophetic dream about him. Or my new boyfriend. Maybe not him.
Yeah, this relationship is not on. I'm just going to be super freaking honest. I prefer always, as you know, to guide you into your own awareness about where a relationship is and whether it should continue and all that. It should never be my choice. So like even when I give you my opinion right now, you don't get to make me responsible for breaking up with this person. But this relationship is not on. Like, you guys could not be on two different pages more if you tried. So I feel like what you're dealing with is genuine incompatibility here. I feel like you're dealing with different desires in general, and I feel like both of you are wanting to stay together without really assessing whether or not you guys want to be going in the same direction. So the universe itself, right now, relative to both of you, is going to continue to put more and more pressure on the cracks between you, rather than keeping you together.
Next question. Dear Teal, sorry. I'm looking to create changes in our school systems, integrating social emotional learning, adding what is missing. That is creating so much suffering. Do you think the best way to go about this is to gather a team, create the processes, and release it in a book, or start with one school and document the work to share with the world?
I just gave you my answer. Yeah, I feel like the right thing to do is to actually create the results before you write the theory. You know what that means. Next question.
How do you know when it's time to let go of your relationship? How do you know if you're truly incompatible? I didn't really like that question.
Okay. If you know you're ready to end a relationship, if ending the relationship is the greatest relief that you can find, and you've explored all of the shadows around why you would be exiting and escaping and all of that stuff, most people, when they're in hell, they exit the relationship before it feels like a step of relief. Now, it's never going to feel, I'm not going to say it's never going to. With super conscious people, it can feel actually really good to end a relationship, but for the majority of people, you're not, especially if you're doing a breakup at all, you're not dealing with that type of personality on the other side. So, or you. So what we get basically is that it's never going to feel amazing to end a relationship. And you shouldn't be telling yourself that it's going to. Because look at that. When you end a relationship, you're ending a whole future. And that's oftentimes what's more painful to let go of. It's your idea of what it could have been like. And so, don't look to be feeling amazing. But what will happen is, even at the most horrific moments, where it's like, I just don't even know if I made the right decision, this is just freaking terrible. Even at the most horrific moments, there's a part of you that can't make itself go back. It's almost like you will feel that it's so incredibly uphill, so against the current of where you should be going. And that's usually the point at which ending a relationship is a good idea. Because you've got the majority of you on board with ending the relationship instead of half and half. Half of you pulling towards the relationship, half of you pulling against it, and so it's basically getting ripped in half. But, I'm going to be honest with you. Relationships are the heart of our happiness in life. They are life. Whether you're in a relationship with a person, a place, or a thing, it's all relationships on planet Earth. In the land of other, in the land of identity, your whole life is relationships. So, how much does a happy life mean to you? We've got to not give up on getting the things that we want. And sometimes when we run into a dead end, it's just obvious that no matter how hard we try, we're never going to get to a place where it gets better. Then we got to ask ourselves how dedicated we are to actually living a happy life, because you can't have a happy life in an unhappy relationship. It's a contradiction in terms.
I feel sexually unattracted to men. I feel undesirable, and that hurts. What is the reason that I can't seem to attract a man who desires me and with whom the attraction is strong and mutual? It's a guy, I believe.
Okay, with you specifically, what's interesting is when I'm looking at the people who you're lining up with, and when I'm looking at you, their perception of you is that you're draining them. It's almost like they don't feel like it's going to be a mutual relationship. They feel towards you like they would feel towards a tick. So there's something in your energy field that is grasping and sucking on them as if the only way that you can get what you want is through them. So it's registering in their mentality as it's not about me, it's about something he wants to get through me. And it's going to drain me, it's not going to sustain my energy, and so it's kind of like a going away. Also, the demographic of people that you're attracted to, and like the vast majority of them, they already have trauma around being used. It's why their sexuality is what their sexuality is, in fact. And so that feeling of being sucked on or leeched off of, or being needed for something that you can get out of them, is re-traumatizing them, and that energy is creating a huge repellent. So if I were you, I would look at the aspect of you that is like needing through people, basically. It's like you've got a lot of intimacy phobes in your field. So these are people that are really terrified of getting close. And if anything, they're going to be looking for how they can use instead of how they can be used. So those are the general vibrations that I've just given you to look into and to start to purify if you want to be a match to somebody that actually wants a genuine relationship.
It's been a few months now that I've been actively gaining consciousness, mainly by watching your teachings. I feel like it is time now to start practicing spirituality on a daily basis. Where do I start?
Practicing spirituality on a daily basis?
Is that pretty vague?
That's pretty vague, yeah. I mean, it would depend on the person. This is how I like to work, okay? The way that I like to work things with people's spiritual progression is that I like people to look at their life in terms of what is going the worst for them. And then they pick a practice that is an antidote to that experience. And they literally make that their only focus. What I want you to do, because I know you've been watching the videos and you watch a lot of information, and to be honest, me and other people, what we do is we throw so much information and so many tools at you that it's like overwhelming. You will fail if you try to use all the tools at once. So it's way better when it comes to your spiritual practice to master one thing before you move on to the next thing. So let's say that, do you want me to just feel into him and see? Is it a girl or a guy?
Girl.
Okay, well.
Although she did have another question about her past specifically.
I want to feel into her. I can't get a feel though, like just sitting here. So for this one, can you like touch the question on the screen and touch me?
Touch the question.
Touch the question and then touch me. Cute. We're doing a psychic conduction here. Actually, the practice that I would pick for you specifically is a practice around saying no. Not saying no just to be a dick, but like, saying no because your success is so much about what you say no to. This is really important, and I want you guys to really swallow this, those of you who are really interested in success. Success is actually more about what you say no to than what you say yes to. You can completely destroy your personal energy by saying yes to the wrong types of things. And you, spiritually, need to start practicing this. So in your life, on a day-to-day basis, I want you to be thinking about what can I say no to? What do I really want to say no to? And if I feel that aspect of me that wants to say no, how do I do that in a way that makes me feel safe? Because no is not something which was safe to you. But I want that to be the practice. And I want you to see what it feels like to be living a life where you get to have that boundary specifically. So I want you to focus on that, make it mastery and an art of that, first and foremost, if I was to pick for you. Go for it.
What are my attachments to standards, and how do I get rid of them?
Why would you want to get rid of your attachment to standards? Oh my God, spoken like a true perfectionist. I don't understand why you'd want to get rid of your standards. Even universally, that doesn't make any sense, because, obviously you could be disqualifying people and there could be some shadows there, but that doesn't have to do with standards. Universally, we're in the process of expansion, and so it makes no sense to set the bar low. You set the bar freaking high, and you spend your life trying to reach it. It's about not berating yourself or other people when they fall short of that. It's more about sort of the abusive tendencies we have around falling short of those standards than the standards themselves. And I'm going to tell you, as a person who is successful, having those standards will make you 400 times more successful. it also makes for a better product if you're selling it to people. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's a really super healthy thing to wake up in the morning and be like, my standard is this and I'm not going to accept anything less. It makes it so that that's where all of the energy is headed. If you make it fine, I'm not talking about abusing yourself, but if you make it just fine to like fall short of any standard, look at the kind of crap you're going to be creating. I can tell you that I'm flying in airplanes every day. If the standard people set for themselves was low in terms of engineering a fucking airplane, I wouldn't be very happy with that, and I'd probably be dead. So, standards are not the problem. It's how you treat people and yourself around the failure to meet your standards and those standards. And it's about how tied in with those standards your self-worth is. But that's a self-worth issue, it's not a standards issue.
They were like, oh, so many questions on relationships, and I don't even have one. How do I get one?
No, you have relationships. It's impossible to live a life. Okay, so our main focus in life is on a romantic relationship. When we say relationship, that's what everybody assumes. But actually, you do have a relationship. Every person on Earth has a relationship. It's impossible not to have a relationship. And even if you didn't have a relationship with a physical human, which you do, because you live in planet Earth and you're even attending the seminar right now, which means you had to be connected enough to know that, you would have relationships with the carrot on your plate that you eat, assuming you eat carrots. So you are in a relationship. Every single one of you has relationships, and if you want to master your time-space reality, you master relationships. The romantic relationship just happens to be one type of relationship, and it's the one that human beings like the most. They don't blame people for that. It's juicy and complicated and messy and magic. Continue.
My boyfriend does not have sex with me anymore. I'm struggling a lot with this because I feel being in a friendship instead of a romantic relationship. He won't let me find my needs elsewhere, of course. I can't quit. It is too painful. If he is my mirror, what does this mean?
Okay, do you remember how I showed you up here earlier how Graciela went into a part within her? This universe, because it's based on the law of mirroring, and we are basically fractals of this greater universe, you can use that to your advantage by finding the part in you that is your partner, or is whatever character trait that partner has. So, for example, in this type of scenario, come here, actually, I can do it with you, Gracie. Graciela can channel that aspect of you, ready?
This should be fun. Okay.
Obviously, this internal thing is manifested externally. Now, we can look at childhood trauma that also mirrors. So being rejected suddenly at a certain point might be a childhood trauma, and that's why this is reflecting into your external time-space reality. But when somebody has shown up as a person in your life, chances are they are the external representation of an entire fragment within yourself. So, Graciela, do you accept to become the aspect within this woman who is the man who is now refusing to have sex with her?
Yes. I really don't want to look at anything.
What do you mean you don't want to look at it?
It's just, everything's boring.
Everything is boring. Okay. By the way, what you're seeing, Graciela, this is a part of you, and it's what's mirroring externally as your boyfriend. So everything's boring. You seem checked out.
Yeah, like, what do you want with me? I just want to be doing my own thing. I feel like you're using me.
Me? I'm just sitting here.
Well, why do I have to be answering your questions?
I didn't ask you any.
Then why am I sitting here? I don't want to be doing this.
Okay, do you recognize that you're in complete resistance to everything?
Yeah, fine, sure.
Do you even want to be in a relationship?
I feel like they're really draining.
Okay.
But I don't want to answer that question because I feel like I'll be in trouble, so.
How do you feel about the main personality?
The main personality?
Mm-hmm. Why don't you give her the name?
Drag.
Menina.
How do you feel about Menina?
Ugh.
This is how part of you feels about you.
Like, she's such a drag. A drag. I want to use the word drag specifically.
So why do you want to be in a relationship with her?
I don't know. I like her, I guess.
What do you like about her?
She's fun sometimes. I feel like she's fun when she wants to do what I want to do.
So you want complete control, basically.
I wouldn't call it control.
No, that's control. You need to accept that that's control.
No.
Yeah.
I don't.
You actually just saw that it's control, so unfortunately you got it even without getting it.
I didn't actually get it.
You did get it.
No.
Yes, you did.
I will fucking fight you forever.
I know, because you're resistant in nature.
Mm-mm.
She got it, though.
I did not get what you just said, and I just forgot.
You
So
did. She did.
you can't win. Okay, that's control.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay.
Why do you need control over everyone and everything?
I feel like I need the choice to do. I don't feel like I got many choices. So I want to do what I want to do.
So you're just saying no.
Yeah. That's the only choice I do feel like I have.
Okay, so the only choice that I feel like I have is no.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mm. Ouch. Okay.
That's like a little kid. I need you to see that about yourself.
Okay.
Do you know a little toddler sitting in the corner and it says no to the White Sox, no to the Black Sox, no to the Red Sox, just because no feels good? That's what you're doing in relationships.
It's where I feel like I am.
But then you don't want relationships because you can't do that to relationships. You see that? You can't do that without pushing people away.
See, but now I'm gonna fight you that I do want one. I need choices. But I don't know that I need choices, so that's a problem.
Now you know that you need choices.
Well, now I just, yeah,
You need choices.
I need choices.
But I need you to see this. I pretend it's me and you, okay? We're in a relationship. I want you.
Okay.
Now ask me to do something.
Do you want to go play tennis?
No. God, I don't
Shall
know why
we
you
go
keep
see a
asking
movie?
me. No. I don't know why you keep asking me. You know I don't like those movies.
What do you want to do?
I don't know. Why are you always looking to me to make the decision?
Well, because if I say anything, you're going to say no.
I say no to the fact that you say that I say no.
And then I'm stuck.
This is how people feel with you in a relationship.
Okay, that's frustrating.
You're looking to feel a sense of yourself by pushing against someone.
Yeah, I'm aware that I don't feel like I have an identity.
What I'm doing to you right now is what you do to people.
Okay.
There is no way to have a relationship with it. It's not possible.
Okay. But
Your
I want one.
relationship is antagonism.
Yeah. Okay. I want one, and I actually feel like I'll work for one.
What if you could have an identity based on what you say yes to?
Okay, tell me more.
Do you like the color pink?
Yeah.
Do you like the color blue?
No, green.
You like green. So you say yes to green. You are a person who likes green. You just said yes to something, and saying yes to something defines your identity.
Feels weird. Okay. I need to get that a little bit more.
Well, get it more.
So, saying yes defines my identity.
Yes.
So, okay. So, what if so I gave you examples, like, do you want to go to the movie or do you want to go to tennis?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I don't want to.
If I say I say, yes, I want to go to the movies, and it's genuine.
Yeah.
Did I lose myself, or did we just get closer?
No, we just got closer.
Yeah.
But what
That's a
I'm saying,
relationship.
okay, I don't want to do the movies. I don't want to do the tennis, but I do want to watch a movie at home.
Okay.
So maybe pointing that out and asking you what movies you would like to watch.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's a relationship.
All right. Okay, I got this. I
Yeah.
actually feel really proud of myself.
Okay, well, explain it.
I do really want a relationship. Just so you know.
Why did you explain to Nina?
Explain what?
The revelation you just had as her part.
We can have what we want, and they can have what they want, and we can have a relationship and be ourselves.
How?
Yeah, I almost thought we had to be codependent for that.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
How do you feel about sex?
In the middle about it. I don't
Why?
feel like I've had an experience where I haven't lost myself.
I feel like that's definitely not been an experience you've had either.
So it's kind of like, it's semi-enjoyable, but I still have fear of it. But I lose myself in a bad way. Like
Why
a
do you
codependent.
think Medina wants to have sex?
She wants to pull him.
So she wants closeness. And she's using sex to get closeness.
It's actually a little bit more manipulative than that. She wants to pull him into her side so she doesn't have to lose herself. I can tell you that from this perspective.
Ooh.
Oops.
Explain that a little better. To the conscious mind.
So from this pattern, I can see that what we are doing is basically it's either them or us. So the reason we're having sex is because we want to pull him towards our side so he will agree to do what we want to do.
And so he's going to say no to that.
Bad strategy. Okay.
He is saying no to that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel good to him.
I hate that this is
He
bad
knows that
strategy.
you're using sex as leverage.
Okay.
Can you become conscious of that?
Yeah. I just felt that it was a bad strategy. Got it. Yeah, and that's also the reason I lose myself, because that's when I'm giving myself,
Yes.
so that I can get stuff back.
So your sex is transactional.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I need you to become conscious of that. I need you both to become conscious of the fact that sex is transactional for you at this point, and so it's used as leverage, and so no partner is going to want to be with that. They're not going to want to have sex with that. It's basically like eating poisoned water. It's eating a hook. So you gotta explore sexuality, what sexuality would be if it wasn't a transaction.
Okay. Well, I feel like we can explore that as we explored this more, of being able to have ourselves and have them too.
Okay. Okay. Do you accept to integrate into the conscious mind of Medina?
She's pretty stubborn. And she has an issue with seeing herself as bad.
But that's the thing, this isn't about bad, this is about reality.
She has an issue seeing reality.
90% of women, if not more, use sex as leverage.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Okay, integrate me. Yes, I will integrate you.
Okay, so I need you, Medina, if you're sitting there, I need you to affirm to yourself, I consciously accept this as part of myself. I choose to become aware of this part of myself.